Okay, welcome again into today's episode. This is our third episode in a discussion of the eye. I would request you, if you have not watched the previous two episodes, you go back and watch. Remember, our first episode was about the orbital structure, especially the bone that makes up the bony orbit. And in the second episode, we looked at the fissures and foramina within the bony orbit. Okay? So in today's episode, which is our third episode, we are going to look at the accessory structures of the eye. Okay, basically, there are some structures that aid and support the eye, but they are not directly involved in the processing and then production of vision. Okay, so these accessory structures include, we are going to talk about them into detail. It includes the eyelid. Number 2, we have the eyelashes. Number 3, we have the eyebrows. Number 4, the lacrimal apparatus. And lastly, number 5, the eye muscles, especially the extraocular muscles of the eye. Okay, we are going to start with the eyelid. The eyelid, together with the tears, is very much important because it protects the eye and then also helps in the lubrication of the eyeball. Because when you look at the structure of the eyelid, we have this part here, we have the eyeball, and then the eyelid form something like this. We have the eyelid. Now, the eyelid is made up of the fold of skin, which covers the eye anteriorly. The eyelid, on the outer surface of the eyelid, externally, it is made up of the skin, and internally, we have the palpebral conjunctiva. Basically, the structures that makes up the eyelid, the first one is formed of the skin, because you know that the skin has different layers. We have the epidermis of skin. We have the dermis of skin. And then we have subcutaneous tissue. We have, and the fourth one after subcutaneous tissue, we have the fibers of a muscle, the orbicularis oculi muscle, okay? We have fibers of orbicularis oculi muscle, okay? After the fibers of orbicularis oculi muscle, we shall have the tarsal plate. After the tarsal plate, within the tarsal plate, we have the tarsal gland. And then lastly, on the inner surface, we have a thin layer of the palpebral conjunctiva. So, as you can see, the outermost surface of the eyelid is made up of the skin, the epidermis of the skin, and then the innermost, we have the palpebral conjunctiva. That is when we just make a cross-section within the eyelid. Okay, now, we have two eyelids. We have the upper eyelid and then the lower eyelid. And there is a space which is separating the upper from the lower, which is called the palpebral fissure. Okay, so within this space, this one is what is called the palpebral fissure. Okay, palpebral fissure is just a small space that separates the upper eyelid from the lower eyelid. Now, the eyelid is maintained in position. There is a very important structure within the eyelid, that is the tarsal plate. We have the tarsal plate which is embedded within the eyelid. Okay, so the tarsal plate here is made up of the dense connective tissue, and it is important in maintaining and then also supporting other structures within the eyelid. Okay, now this tarsal plate is not just hanging, it's also having receiving support from other structures. I think, let me draw another clearer view. So, if we have the eye here, maybe with this we have the eyeball. Let's say this is the eyeball. Okay, we have the eyelid. We have the upper eyelid, and then this one is the lower eyelid. Okay, now what supports this eyelid, the upper eyelid, and then the lower eyelid? We have the tarsal plate. Okay, So we have the tarsal plate. There are two tarsal plates. We have the superior tarsal plate and then the what? The inferior tarsal plate. Let's say this is the superior tarsal plate and then this is the inferior. This is the inferior tarsal plate. Okay. Remember, it is made up of a dense connective tissue and it is the most important part that supports the eyelid. Now, these tarsal plates, they are not just hanging in space. They are also receiving a support from a ligament, which is a layer of fibrous tissue. We have this fibrous tissue that connects it to the medial wall of bony orbit, and then another fibrous tissue that connects it to the lateral wall of the bony orbit. Okay, so let me say this one is the medial part, and then maybe this one is the lateral part. Okay, let's say this is medial, and then lateral. Okay, now this fibrous tissue, it is called tarsal ligament. Tarsal ligament. We have two. We have for the medial part and then for the lateral part. This is medial tarsal ligament, and this one here is lateral tarsal ligament. Okay, so the medial tarsal ligament, it attaches the tarsal plate to the medial wall of the bony orbit, and the lateral tarsal ligament attaches the lateral the tarsal plate to the lateral wall of the bony orbit. Okay, but this medial tarsal ligament is also very important because in addition to attaching the tarsal plate to the medial wall of bony orbit, it also marked the attachment point of one of the two muscles of the eyelid, that is orbicularis oculi muscle. Okay. Okay. Remember, we have only two muscles within the eyelid. We have orbicularis oculi muscle, which receives its attachment onto the medial tarsal ligament, and then the second muscle of the eyelid is what we are going to look at next, which is the superior levator superioris muscle. It is levator superioris muscle. Now, on the superior tarsal plate, this is superior tarsal plate, and then this one here is inferior tarsal plate. On the superior tarsal plate, there is a very important muscle that attaches the superior tarsal plate and then runs up to the superior margin of the bony orbit. That is levator superioris muscle. Okay, so here we have the fibers. Okay, the tendon of the levator superioris, the tendon of the levator superioris muscle. Okay, running here. This one receive the tendon of levator superioris muscle. Okay, now you can see there is still some space remaining here. Okay, but another thing that before leaving the tarsal plate, there is a very important gland, because the eyelid, both the upper eyelid and the lower eyelid, must not adhere onto the surface of the eyeball. It must receive some lubrication from somewhere. There is a gland that secretes the fluid that helps lubricating the eye, especially around the part of the palpebral conjunctiva, to prevent it adhering onto the surface of the eyeball. Okay, within the tarsal plate here, we have a very important gland, that is the tarsal gland. Okay, we have the tarsal glands located. Okay, we have the tarsal gland, the tarsal glands. Okay, sometimes it is also referred to as Meibomian gland, okay? It is located within the tarsal plate here. Now, this meibomian gland, it secretes a very important fluid that helps prevent the eyelid from adhering onto the surface of the eyeball. Okay, now, there is this space remaining here. There is this space. There is this space here. This space here is covered by a layer of fibrous tissue. Okay, a layer of fibrous tissue. This fibrous tissue, we shall call it orbital septum. Orbital septum. Okay. Remember, the tarsal plate majorly is located at the anterior aspect of the eyelid. And then this other part, there is covered by this fibrous layer of fibrous tissue, which is called orbital septum. This orbital septum attaches the tarsal plate and runs up to the margin of the bony orbit. And it is continuous with the periosteum of the bony orbit. It is important because it also gives the covering and then also fills this particular space. Okay? Because all along we know the importance of the conjunctiva. The conjunctiva, in the first place, it prevents and protects the eye from particulate matter and then injuries. Okay? And then can also protect the eye from direct sun rays. Okay? So that is all about the eyelid. Okay? As a recap, remember there are only two muscles within the eyelid. It is orbicularis oculi muscle and then levator palpebrae superioris. Okay? Now, what nature has done to us, it has made the eye is devoid of hairs except the eyelashes and then the eyebrows. So that one will take us to eyelashes and then the what? The eyebrows. Okay, which are the other structures that makes up the extraocular structures of the eye. So let us look at the eyelashes and then the eyebrow. Let us look at the eyelashes and the eyebrows. Okay, as I told you earlier on, these are the only hair which is present within the eye, but there is no any other hair. Okay, so the eyelashes project onto from the free margin of the eyelid, and then the eyebrows arch transversely above the eyelashes. Okay, now when we draw the eye, let's say this is the eye. On the free margin of the eyelid, we have the eyelashes. This one we have the eyelashes. Okay, and then the eyebrows arch transversely. Okay, above the eyelashes. This is the eyebrows. Okay, both the eyelashes and eyebrows are very much important because it protects the eye also from injury and then other particulate matter like dust, and then also prevent the eye from perspiration, okay, and also prevent direct sun rays from entering the eye. So these structures, the eyebrows and then eyelashes, is very much important because of the above functions. Okay. Now, when you look at the eyelashes, it projects from the anterior free margin of the eyelid, and majorly it's arranged into either double or triple rows. And most importantly, what we can just talk about the eyelashes is the presence of the ciliary glands. Okay, within eyelashes, we find the what? The ciliary. You find the ciliary gland. Okay, this ciliary gland, it secretes a fluid. Which is important from preventing the eyelid also from adhering to each other, because we have the upper eyelid and then the lower eyelid. Okay, but clinically, sometimes this ciliary gland can also be infected, either in most cases by bacteria. So in its infection can lead to the inflammation that will lead to swelling, and at times can be pus-filled. Okay, and the condition that results from this one is called stye. So that is all about the eyelashes and then the eyebrow. Let us move and see the lacrimal apparatus. Okay, lacrimal apparatus, because we know that the eye, the surface of the eye must be kept moist. And the fluid that keeps it moist is the tear. Where does the tear is produced from? Majorly it is from the lacrimal apparatus. So let us look at the lacrimal apparatus. Lacrimal apparatus. Okay. Now, lacrimal apparatus consists of the following. We have lacrimal duct, then lacrimal gland. Okay. We have lacrimal puncta, after lacrimal puncta, we have lacrimal canaliculi. Canaliculi. And then we have lacrimal sac, and then nasolacrimal duct, nasolacrimal duct. Okay, so all this collectively it makes up the lacrimal apparatus, and this one marks the point whereby the tears or the lacrimal fluid is produced and then its drainage point. Okay, so when we have the structure of the eye here, let's say this is the eye. Okay, on the superlateral surface of the eye here, we have the lacrimal gland. We have so many of them. Okay, but basically we have different lobules of lacrimal gland, but it is divided majorly into two. We have the orbital part of lacrimal gland and then the palpebral part of the lacrimal gland, and it is divided by the fiber, the tendon of the superior, by the levator superioris, okay, muscle. Then it will open onto the lateral surface of the eyeball, whereby it will have its duct. We have the lacrimal duct. This is lacrimal gland, and then it opens via lacrimal duct, Then it will pour its secretion onto the lateral surface of the eye, and then it will flow across the eyeball onto the medial surface, okay, medial part of the eye, okay, whereby we have another structure here. We have at this point this one here is lacrimal puncta. This is superior lacrimal puncta. Okay, this one here is inferior lacrimal puncta. Punctum, okay, singular form is punctum. Then we shall have the canaliculi. This is superior lacrimal canaliculus. And then here we have inferior lacrimal canaliculus. Okay. Then at this point here we have the sac, the lacrimal sac, and then the nasolacrimal duct down here. And then its opening, it opens at the point of the nose, the inferior meatus of the nose, of the nostril. Okay. So this one here is lacrimal sac, and then there is nasolacrimal duct, nasolacrimal duct. Okay. This now here is the opening. It's open at the point of the inferior meatus. Meatus of the nose. Okay. So as you can see, this is the structure that produces tear, and these are the points where the tear gets drained. Okay. It starts from the lacrimal gland, lacrimal duct, lacrimal puncta, and then lacrimal canaliculi, where we have both superior and inferior, then lacrimal sac, and then that's lacrimal duct, okay? So it's a very important structure because we know that the eye must be moist. But if this structure here, the lacrimal gland, maybe because of any other problem, maybe because of its innervation, it has gotten a problem, the tear will not be produced, and then the eye is going to be dry, and then it's going to cause problems because the cornea must be moist all the time, okay? And to prevent friction, because the eyelid is up here, to prevent friction, and then also other damage or injury onto the surface of the eye, okay? So this structure is important because it produces the tears that helps lubricate the surface of the eyeball, and then also within the tears, we also have some antibacterial activity because it contains the lysozyme and then some immunoglobulin, okay, that help protect the body against the infectious agents, okay. Lastly, on the accessory structure of the eye, we have the eye muscles, especially the extraocular eye muscles. We also have the intrinsic eye muscles beside the extraocular eye muscles, okay? So let us look at the eye muscles, the muscles of the eye, and this will mark our last discussion on the accessory structure of the eye, muscles of the eye, okay? There are two groups of muscles of the eye. We have the intrinsic eye muscles and then the extrinsic eye muscles, okay? The intrinsic eye muscle, the intrinsic eye muscles, we have three intrinsic eye muscles, okay? Number one, we have ciliary muscles, okay? These ciliary muscles, it is attached onto the surface of the ciliary body, okay? And it functions to regulate the shape of the lens. Because if we are focusing from far and then short distance, because the lens surface, the lens shape must be regulated, okay? Sometimes must be narrowed or must be thickened. And that regulation is brought about by the action of the ciliary muscle. The ciliary muscle is innervated by the sympathetic nervous system, okay? Now, the next intrinsic eye muscle is the constrictor pupillae. Constrictor pupillae. Constrictor pupillae, its function is to constrict the pupil, okay? And it is innervated by parasympathetic nervous system, okay? And lastly, we have the dilator pupillae. Okay, so the dilator pupillae, its function is majorly just to dilate, the pupil, okay? And then also receive its innervation from parasympathetic nervous system. But this one does not make the accessory structure, okay? So the part which is just most important in the accessory structure of the eye is the extraocular eye muscles that we are going to wind up with our discussion, okay? So let us look at extraocular eye muscles, the extraocular eye muscles. We have 6 extraocular eye muscles, okay? We have lateral rectus, then we have medial rectus, we have superior rectus, we have inferior rectus, and then we have, number 5, we have superior oblique, and then lastly, number 6, we have inferior oblique. Okay, so the extraocular eye muscle, its function is to maintain the eyeball into position, okay? And then also helps the eye to move, and then also because really in the process of gaze, the eye must be, there should be conjugate eye movement. When one eye is moving, the other one must be followed. And then that regulation is maintained by the extraocular eye muscles, okay? Now, this extraocular eye muscles receives its innervation from the cranial nerves. We have three different cranial nerves that innervate the extraocular eye muscles. And in the innervation of extraocular eye muscles, there is the mnemonic that we use. Okay, LR6, SO4, and then the rest 3. Meaning, lateral rectus is innervated by cranial nerve number 6, which is abducent. Okay, and then superior oblique is innervated by cranial nerve number 4, which is trochlear. And the remaining, all the rest of the extraocular eye muscles is innervated by cranial nerve number 3, okay, which is oculomotor. Okay, so lateral rectus receives its innervation from cranial nerve number 6, that is abducens. Medial rectus is cranial nerve number 3, which is oculomotor. Superior rectus, still cranial nerve number 3, which is oculomotor. Inferior rectus, cranial nerve number 3, oculomotor. Superior oblique is cranial nerve number 4, which is trochlear. And then inferior oblique is cranial nerve number 3, okay. It is very much important because when we have damage in this innervation, we shall have weaknesses in this in the respective extraocular eye muscles. That is going to give us different clinical presentation. Okay. Now, lastly, let us look at what do these eye muscles do. Lateral rectus, it moves the eyeball laterally. Medial rectus moves the eyeball medially. Superior rectus, it elevates the eyeball and moves it medially. Okay. Inferior rectus, it depresses the eyeball and also moves it medially at the same time. Superior oblique, it depresses the eyeball and rotates it laterally. And inferior oblique, it elevates the eyeball and also moves it laterally. Okay, so those kind of movement, it will be impaired depending on which cranial nerve is affected in case of any injury. Okay, so guys, thank you for watching. This was our third episode in a discussion of the eye, and we have already discussed the accessory muscles, the accessory structures of the eye. Thank you. I encourage you, please watch, subscribe, like, comment, as it will help us in the production of the upcoming videos. Thank you.